military terms, AWOL stands for absent without leave a serious offense. While there are countless reasons why someone might join the military, the transition often includes a harsh reality check about personal freedoms. Members quickly learn that traveling or taking time off requires official approval, even for emergencies. Failing to follow protocol can result in severe consequences, including jail time. Yet some individuals defy these rules and go AWOL for various reasons, ranging from emotional distress to dissatisfaction with military life. One particularly bizarre case involved 6 U.S. Army soldiers, all intelligence specialists, stationed in West Germany. These individuals abandoned their posts and flew to Gulf Breeze, Florida. The reason? They claimed that a spirit, contacted through a Ouija board, had warned them of an impending apocalypse and instructed them to locate and kill the Antichrist. This unbelievable story involved elements of the supernatural, including demons, ghosts, and mind control, as well as conspiracy and wild beliefs. Military officials who investigated the case were left baffled by the soldiers' convictions. Dubbed the Gulf Breeze Six, their story remains one of the strangest instances of desertion in modern military history. The story of the Gulf Breeze Six begins with 2 young Army intelligence specialists, 26-year-old Kenneth B. and 25-year-old Vance Davis. Both men, though possessing unconventional beliefs, were regarded as well-trained and capable in their roles. After completing their intelligence training in the late 1980s, they were assigned to the 731st Military Intelligence Brigade in Augsburg, West Germany. Their duties involved working at a major NSA listening post near the Soviet border, a position that demanded skill and precision. Despite their professional aptitude, the two shared an unusual bond, a deep fascination with the paranormal, an interest rooted in their adolescence. Kenneth's experiences with the unexplained began as a child. He often spoke of a vivid memory from age 5, claiming a ghost once brought him a glass of water when he was thirsty. This early event sparked a lifelong obsession with science fiction, supernatural encounters, and UFOs, which only grew stronger with time. His family, aware of his intellectual curiosity, worried about his gullibility and openness to influence. During his military training in Pensacola, Florida, Kenneth's interest in the paranormal intensified after meeting Anna Foster, a local bookstore owner and self-proclaimed psychic and UFO enthusiast. Her beliefs reinforced his growing fascination with the supernatural. Meanwhile, Vance had also cultivated a similar interest. As a teenager, he explored hypnosis and later enrolled in Silva mind control courses developed by Alex Merklinger, a spiritual figure with a controversial history of fraud convictions. Vance claimed to have mastered self-hypnosis through active imagination, a technique designed to delve into the subconscious mind. These shared beliefs and interests laid the foundation for the extraordinary events that followed. Eventually, Vance's practice of self-hypnosis took an unusual turn when he reportedly encountered a green-skinned alien being named Kia during one of his trances. According to Vance, Kia possessed various powers and even corrected his flat-footedness, a physical condition that had troubled him since joining the Army. Beyond healing, Kia shared detailed information about her species, the wider universe, and a protective alien group called the Alliance, which was at war with a hostile coalition known as the Others. Bonded by their shared interests and paranormal experiences, Kenneth and Vance spent their free time researching the supernatural and the unexplained. After their daily duties intercepting and decrypting Soviet radio signals at their post in West Germany, the two would often gather in their barracks, discussing personal stories and the books they had been reading. Their casual explorations eventually shifted into more focused attempts to contact otherworldly entities through practices like guided meditations and tarot readings. Their activities, initially private, soon attracted a small group of like-minded soldiers: Beck Michael Hatt, 19, Beeks Kurlock, 20, Vex William Sederberg, 20, and Sergeant Annette Eason, 22. Together, the 6 began experimenting with methods to communicate with spirits. Despite their initial failures, the group eventually turned to a Ouija board, a tool they regarded as a last resort due to its reputation as a simple party game. To their surprise, it worked. The planchette moved, responding to their questions. Over the course of 7 or 8 sessions, the group received messages from what they believed were at least 7 different spirits. Initially, the messages carried no overtly religious meaning, But this changed as the spirits began identifying themselves with biblical figures such as Old Testament prophets Zechariah and disciples of Christ, including Mark and Timothy. The group was stunned when a spirit claiming to be Mary, the mother of Jesus, began reaching out specifically to Sergeant Annette Eason, the only female among them. However, the most dominant voice to emerge during their sessions wasn't associated with any biblical figure. It was an entity that identified itself as Sapphire. Described as having a distinctly feminine presence, Sapphire claimed to have been a woman from Georgia in her earthly life. This revelation deeply unsettled the group, amplifying their intrigue and fear. Through consecutive Ouija board sessions, Sapphire delivered a chilling series of apocalyptic warnings. The spirit claimed the world was on the brink of catastrophic events, listing between 80 and 90 prophetic predictions. Among the first was a devastating earthquake in Iran, resulting in over 300,000 casualties. Sapphire warned of further geological disasters, including massive earthquakes in Russia and along the U.S. West Coast, triggering volcanic eruptions and extreme weather conditions that would reshape global geography and climate. The warnings also extended to political and social upheaval. Sapphire foresaw wars in the Middle East involving the U.S., Iraq, and Israel, alongside economic collapse and widespread riots in the United States, leading to martial law. Europe was predicted to unify economically and politically, creating a shift in global power. These upheavals would supposedly culminate in the revelation of extraterrestrial life and the rise of a new world order. Central to Sapphire's warnings was the emergence of the Antichrist, a figure who would rise from the ruins of Europe in 1998. A year deemed significant due to its mathematical connection to the number 666. This individual, hailed as a peacemaker by religious leaders and the masses, would ultimately usher in devastating wars, religious persecution, and immense human suffering. Despite repeated questioning, the group was unable to obtain a specific identity for this person. Sapphire's revelations left the group questioning their purpose. As low-ranking U.S. Army soldiers, they were overwhelmed by the enormity of these warnings and unsure of what they could possibly do to prevent the foretold apocalypse. According to Sapphire's messages, the 6 soldiers were not brought together by chance. The spirit claimed they had been chosen by God for a critical mission, to prepare for the impending apocalypse and serve as guiding figures for humanity in its aftermath. Initially skeptical of the extraordinary predictions, the soldiers became believers after one of Sapphire's prophecies was fulfilled. On June 21, 1990, a magnitude 7.4 earthquake struck the Caspian Sea region of northern Iran, resulting in 40,000 to 50,000 deaths, tens of thousands injured, and over 400,000 displaced. For the soldiers, the earthquake's timing, magnitude, and location were eerily aligned with the Ouija board's warning, providing chilling confirmation of Sapphire's accuracy. This event galvanized the group, who now felt certain of their divine calling. However, as active-duty military personnel, they faced a significant obstacle. They could not simply abandon their posts at the NSO listening station in West Germany to fulfill what they believed was their God-given mission. Seeking further guidance, they returned to the Ouija board. Sapphire's instructions were clear. They were to leave the military immediately, regardless of the consequences, and return to the United States. Once there, they were to retreat to mountainous regions to continue their spiritual development and prepare for the foretold disasters. The soldiers were now at a crossroads. They had sworn an oath to defend their nation, yet they believed their mission to serve God and protect the world was of greater importance. Ultimately, the choice seemed inevitable. Over the course of the next month, the 6 soldiers began exhibiting unusual behaviors that might have raised suspicions among their peers and commanders. Quietly, they started selling off personal belongings to raise funds for their planned escape. Kenneth B. reached out to Anna Foster in Florida, informing her of their plan and their need for a safe house. Without hesitation, Anna offered her home in Gulf Breeze, a small town near Pensacola, as a place for them to hide. This provided the final piece of their plan, a destination. On July 9, 1990, using both official and falsified off-base Liberty passes, the group walked off the Augsburg listening post. Instead of remaining in the local area as their passes required, They headed to the train station and boarded a train to Munich. Despite their conviction in their mission, Kenneth B. felt a wave of fear. The soldiers' work at the Augsburg post was critical, involving the interception and decryption of Soviet radio transmissions during a time of heightened Cold War tensions. The consequences of their desertion could be dire court-martial, imprisonment, or worse. Yet Kenneth reminded himself of the apocalyptic warnings they had received, believing their mission outweighed the risks. To avoid detection, they chose not to fly directly to Pensacola, instead traveling to Knoxville, Tennessee. A friend of Kenneth's picked him up at McGee-Tyson Airport, and the group pooled their money to buy a rundown 1970s Volkswagen van. From there, they drove 400 miles south to Florida. By the time they arrived, their absence had been noticed. Their command, initially unsure of their whereabouts, listed them as absent unknown. Given the classified nature of their work, the Army quickly initiated an investigation that would escalate as the situation unfolded. The names and faces of the 6 soldiers were distributed widely as American and European authorities launched an intense search for them. The initial concern was that the soldiers might have been abducted by a foreign group or worse, had willingly defected to the Soviets or another adversary, potentially leading to a significant security breach. The sudden disappearance of 6 intelligence personnel caused alarm at the highest levels, triggering a coordinated effort to locate them. Meanwhile, Kenneth B. and the others were making their way into Gulf Breeze, Florida, crossing the Pensacola Bridge. Their first stop was Anna Foster's home, where they planned to lie low for a few days, gather supplies, and prepare for the next phase of their mission, driving north to the Appalachian Mountains to await the apocalypse as instructed by Sapphire. Unbeknownst to them, their arrival coincided with a bizarre and well-publicized series of events in Gulf Breeze. Since 1987, Gulf Breeze had gained national attention as a hotspot for UFO sightings. The small beach community, previously quiet and unremarkable, became famous for hundreds of reports of strange, unexplained flying objects. Videos and photographs of spherical, shiny craft defying gravity and vanishing in an instant captivated believers and skeptics alike. Local resident Ed Walters, a housing contractor, became a central figure in the phenomenon after capturing a series of photographs of what he claimed were UFOs. The sightings, dubbed the Gulf Breeze UFO incidents, brought media attention and made the town a focal point for UFO enthusiasts. The 6 soldiers, on a mission to destroy the Antichrist, entered Gulf Breeze during this period of heightened paranormal activity. Whether or not they were aware of the town's UFO history, their arrival added another layer of strangeness to an already peculiar chapter in Gulf Breeze's story. The Gulf Breeze UFO sightings became some of the most famous in history, referenced on shows like The X-Files, studied by the History Channel, and frequently dissected on online forums. The phenomenon began on November 11, 1987, when Ed Walters, a local contractor, claimed to have photographed UFOs in his front yard using a Polaroid camera. Walters produced numerous photos of spherical, glowing craft, sparking widespread intrigue and debate. While skeptics dismissed the images as hoaxes, Walters' claims were bolstered by multiple witnesses who had drawn similar objects before his story was even publicized. The UFO sightings gained further traction when Walters captured additional footage using a video camera. His recording showed a hovering craft emitting mysterious strobe lights over the beach before vanishing into thin air. Investigators, including Bland Pugh of the Mutual UFO Network, examined the footage extensively, finding no evidence of tampering. Pugh remarked that the recordings would be nearly impossible to fake without professional-grade equipment, adding credibility to Walters' claims. Following the publication of his photos, reports of UFO sightings surged. Even local politicians claimed to have seen the strange objects. Gulf Breeze became a magnet for UFO enthusiasts, with thousands of visitors gathering at places like Shoreline Park at night to scan the skies. The town's location near several military installations, including Pensacola Naval Air Station, Hurlburt Field, and Eglin Air Force Base, added to the intrigue. As the UFO craze began to fade, Gulf Breeze seemed poised to return to quiet obscurity. However, the arrival of 6 runaway soldiers on a mission tied to apocalyptic warnings and paranormal beliefs would soon thrust the town back into the national spotlight, opening an entirely new chapter in its bizarre history. When combined with the shocking story of 6 AWOL soldiers and a biblical apocalypse, Gulf Breeze's strange history took an even more dramatic turn. After arriving at Anna Foster's home, the group decided to split up as a precaution. 5 remained at the house, while Sergeant N. Edison set up an emergency campsite nearby, ready to serve as a fallback in case their safe house was compromised. The plan was to stay in Gulf Breeze for only a few days, long enough for the military's investigation to cool down. During this time, they continued communicating with the spirit Sapphire through the Ouija board. According to Sapphire, Gulf Breeze would remain safe until Friday, after which the group was to stop in Texas to gather supplies before heading to the mountains to prepare for the end times. However, an unplanned development disrupted their timeline. Anna Foster's roommate, Diana, caught the eye of Vance Davis. Almost instantly, Davis became infatuated with her, claiming she was the soulmate he had seen in prophetic dreams since his teenage years. Diana reciprocated his feelings, and the two quickly became inseparable. This newfound romance made Vance and Kenneth feel at ease, but the rest of the group grew increasingly uneasy. Being in a military-heavy area like Pensacola, where they had completed their intelligence training, felt dangerously risky. Restlessness set in. On July 14, 1990, fake Michael Hott decided to take the group's rickety van into town to visit a nightclub and blow off steam. Unfortunately, the van had a broken taillight. That night, Michael was pulled over by a Gulf Breeze police officer. Nervous and visibly tense, Michael struggled to keep his composure. When the officer asked for ID and insurance, Michael had neither. Pressed for his name, he hesitantly gave his real identity. A routine computer check quickly flagged Michael Huat in the system. The Department of Defense had issued an alert for him as a wanted deserter. Returning to the van, the officer politely asked Michael to step out, marking the beginning of the unraveling of the group's precarious plan. Michael knew he was caught and begged the officer to let him go, but the officer refused. After his arrest, Michael was handed over to local military authorities at Pensacola Naval Air Station. Once informed that Michael was traveling with 5 other AWOL soldiers, the Gulf Breeze police searched the van and found enough evidence to locate Anna Foster's home and the group's emergency campsite. The remaining 5 soldiers were quickly apprehended. All 6 were transported to Fort Benning, Georgia, where they were placed in solitary confinement and interrogated. They were later moved to Fort Knox, Kentucky, facing the terrifying possibility of an execution sentence for desertion. Despite weeks of planning and guidance they believed was divine, the mission unraveled in a matter of hours. The military investigation was thorough, with each soldier isolated and interrogated by the Army, CIA, FBI, and NSA, all attempting to uncover any potential espionage or treason motives. The truth, however, was far stranger than anyone anticipated. Desperate to save their lives, family members of the 6 soldiers turned to the press, sparking a media frenzy that gave the story national attention. Journalists quickly dubbed the group the Gulf Breeze 6. Headlines like 6 AWOL soldiers say they aim to kill Antichrist spread across newspapers and broadcasts. With the military tight-lipped, reporters sought information from the soldiers' friends, families, and acquaintances, leading to a flood of sensational claims. A man from Tennessee who sold the soldiers their Volkswagen van told reporters they believed Jesus Christ would return aboard one of the UFOs frequently spotted in Gulf Breeze. His wife added that the soldiers thought it was rapture time. Another individual claimed they believed the end of the world was near, and that Jesus would descend on Pensacola Beach in a UFO to take believers to heaven. These assertions further fueled the frenzy. In his defense, Vance Davis dismissed the claims as absurd, stating, "How ridiculous can you get? Jesus Christ is Jesus Christ. Why would he come in a flying saucer?" The group's strange mission and timing arriving in Gulf Breeze just after a surge of UFO sightings cemented their story as one of the most bizarre episodes in military and UFO lore. The media and public quickly latched onto the idea that the Gulf Breeze 6 and the UFO phenomena in the area were somehow connected. Many believed the soldiers had chosen Gulf Breeze specifically because of its reputation as a UFO hotspot, rather than their stated motive of needing a place to lay low at Anna Foster's home. These suspicions gained traction when it was revealed that Kenneth B. had made statements about his belief in reincarnation, claiming he had been sacrificed to the gods in a past life. He also alleged that the U.S. government was collaborating with aliens, and that evidence of this could be found at the NSA listening site in Augsburg, Germany, where the group had worked. Kenneth claimed humanity was on the brink of a major evolutionary step, which explained the presence of alien entities orbiting Earth, living beneath its surface. or telepathically contacting individuals like himself. He described two alien factions, the Alliance, which upheld free will, and the others, who abducted humans and performed medical experiments. Sapphire, the spirit they contacted through the Ouija board, confirmed to the group that their suspicions about government alien collaboration were true. Vance Davis, during interrogation, presented investigators with documentation to support their claims. He explained how Sapphire had warned them of an impending war and how several prophecies, including a devastating earthquake in Iran, had come true, convincing the group they were receiving genuine supernatural guidance. When they deserted, each soldier left behind a letter dictated by Sapphire, hoping it would reach the president to alert him of the coming apocalypse. Vance insisted their choice of Gulf Breeze was purely practical. It was familiar, and Anna Foster lived there and had no connection to UFOs. Anna Foster cooperated with authorities but was neither arrested nor charged. She maintained that her involvement was simply the result of offering her home to a friend and his companions. In a brief statement to reporters, she said, "I don't know what to do. I know it's all real crazy right now. I feel very caught up in this. I was just being a nice person when I opened my house to a friend and his friends." Stan Johnson, a Tennessee resident and friend of Kenneth B., added fuel to the controversy. Having picked up the soldiers at the Knoxville airport, his comments to the press contradicted the group's claims of having no interest in UFOs. This only deepened the public's perception that the soldiers' mission and the UFO activity in Gulf Breeze were somehow intertwined. Stan Johnson, a friend of Kenneth B., described him as a very nice fellow but very gullible, someone who often believed whatever he was told. According to Stan, Kenneth kind of lives in a science fiction fantasy world, frequently talking about UFOs, science fiction, and apocalyptic ideas. Stan recalled Kenneth hanging around his photography business before re-enlisting in the Army, where he rarely discussed his military work, but often shared his fascination with the paranormal. Stan noted that Kenneth had expressed belief in a locally circulating book predicting the end of the world. Several weeks before the group's desertion, Kenneth contacted Stan to arrange a ride from the airport and to help him find a large vehicle, such as a van or station wagon, capable of transporting several people. Kenneth mentioned Pensacola as their destination and even referenced attending a UFO convention there. Stan's remarks, published in a Florida newspaper under the headline "6 Soldiers Here to Kill Antichrist," contributed to the sensationalism surrounding the case. Whether the headlines were meant as serious reporting or simply a way to sell papers, they added to the growing confusion. Amid the media frenzy, a claim emerged that gave investigators legitimate cause for concern. Renowned ufologist Jack Valley revealed that Larry Hind, director of the Georgia chapter of the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, had received a letter from an anonymous source at Fort Benning. This source claimed to have conducted examinations on the 6 soldiers and stated that at least 2 of them believed Ed Walters, the Gulf Breeze resident whose UFO photographs had sparked widespread attention, was the Antichrist. According to this account, the soldiers were convinced Walters was the figure the spirits had warned them about, and that he was responsible for summoning the UFOs seen in Gulf Breeze. The revelation cast an even darker shadow over the group's mission, raising concerns about their true intentions and deepening the mystery surrounding their desertion. The letter asserted that the group's intention was, without question, to murder Ed Walters. However, when confronted with this claim, the soldiers dismissed it as absurd. They acknowledged their belief that an Antichrist would emerge, but insisted that such an event would not occur for another 8 years, according to Sapphire's prophecies. The Army's investigation ultimately found no credible evidence of a plot to commit murder. The letter sent to Larry Hind by the anonymous Fort Benning contact was deemed unfounded and unreliable. To the surprise of those following the case, the military investigation into the Gulf Breeze 6 abruptly concluded by the end of July 1990. On July 28, a Washington article reported that the soldiers had been discharged from the Army. According to Army spokesman Major Joseph Ald, they have been released from their military obligation and are civilians again. After failing to uncover evidence of espionage or any criminal plot, the soldiers were offered non-judicial punishment for desertion. They were reduced to the lowest rank, forfeited half a month's pay, and were released from service with what is widely reported as honorable discharges. The strangeness of the case was compounded by the military's ongoing silence. Despite extensive media coverage, the Army provided no additional comments or details following the conclusion of the investigation. A Pentagon spokesman initially stated that the 6 soldiers were part of a group called the End of the World, but this claim was later retracted, with officials denying the existence of any such group. When the case was eventually declassified, 1,400 of the 1,600 pages in the Army's report were heavily redacted, further fueling speculation. This lack of transparency led to widespread curiosity and suspicion. Some speculated that the military had something to hide, while others believed they were simply embarrassed by such an outlandish incident within their ranks. The members of the Gulf Breeze 6 and their affiliates have largely avoided the media, leaving the gaps in their story to be filled by tabloid journalists and online speculation. Over the years, theories about the case have ranged from claims of mental instability to allegations that the soldiers were unwitting participants in secret military psychic experiments. While much of the story remains shrouded in mystery, it continues to captivate and puzzle those who explore its many unanswered questions. When Vance Davis later published his writings, he suggested that the group may have unknowingly been part of an experiment. This theory was bolstered by observers at the time who noted strange elements of their story. Adding to the mystery, just days before their release from confinement at Fort Knox, an anonymous letter was sent to several major news outlets in the U.S. Army. The letter read, ABC, NBC, CBS, AP, UP, U.S. Army, free the Gulf Breeze 6. We have the missing plans, the box of 500 photos, and the plans you want back. Here is proof with close-ups cut out. Next, we send the close-ups and then everything unless they are released. This cryptic message has fueled speculation that the Gulf Breeze 6 might have accessed classified information about UFOs or psychic research. However, over 3 decades later, the story remains riddled with contradictions, wild claims, and an unclear trail of information. What is certain is that the ordeal profoundly affected the soldiers' lives. Their military careers, reputations, and personal relationships were irreparably damaged. While little is known about the fate of most members, Vance Davis became a vocal advocate for the group's experiences and beliefs. In 1995, he published a book titled Unbroken Promises, a true story of courage and belief, detailing the events of the Gulf Breeze 6. In it, Davis included predictions attributed to Sapphire, such as earthquakes and political upheavals, claiming he had even foreseen the Gulf War. Critics, however, dismissed many of these predictions as vague or based on existing geopolitical tensions. Davis appeared on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell in 1994 and 1998 to share his story, but these interviews marked his final public appearances. As Sapphire's prophecies of an apocalypse failed to materialize by 1998, Davis gradually retreated from the public eye. The Gulf Breeze 6 remains one of the most bizarre cases of desertion in U.S. military history. Its outlandish details continue to captivate supernatural researchers well into the 21st century. Even as recently as 2013, the Marine Corps' Engineer School at Camp Lejeune banned the use of Ouija boards outright, citing past incidents like this where servicemen attempted to communicate with the other side with troubling outcomes. The case of the Gulf Breeze 6, though clouded by uncertainty, endures as a strange and cautionary tale. The connection between Pensacola and its rich history, especially in military intelligence and mysterious events, resonates deeply. For those familiar with the area, the Gulf Breeze 6 case takes on an even more intriguing layer when considering its proximity to landmarks like the Naval Air Station and the Naval Aviation Museum. The region's deep ties to military training and aviation history make it a fitting backdrop for such an enigmatic story. Pensacola's significance extends beyond this tale. Its Naval Air Station serves as a hub for military training, including signals intelligence and reconnaissance, drawing personnel from across the country. For individuals with ties to the area, like those who trained or lived there, the events surrounding Gulf Breeze feel even more surreal, knowing they unfolded in such familiar surroundings. The broader history of the area adds even more intrigue, like the ghost blimp, a World War II mystery involving an empty airship whose gondola is now displayed at the Naval Aviation Museum. These layers of local and personal history only deepen the fascination with Gulf Breeze's unique blend of military presence and paranormal lore, making it a place where the extraordinary often seems just within reach. The story about the supposed Civil War soldier in the creek is a classic tale of childhood gullibility mixed with adventure. Dad's ability to weave an imaginative tale captivated a 10-year-old's mind, turning an old pile of rubbish into a historical treasure site. The idea that the mattress or debris was a decomposed soldier with a knife left in his body sparked an obsession to retrieve the artifact, a pocket knife dream fueled by youthful excitement. The humor came full circle when you shared the story with your family, only for them to indulge the adventure by taking you to Dead Man's Creek. The scene, as described, shifted from fantastical to mundane as the creek revealed itself to be nothing more than a dumping ground. Your older brother's involvement, eager to witness your reaction, added another layer of playful sibling dynamics. Ultimately, confronting Thad the next day led to his blunt and unapologetic response, "You were dumb enough to believe me." It's a quintessential childhood memory of playful deception, the kind that becomes funnier in hindsight. This anecdote captures the innocence and creativity of childhood, where the line between imagination and reality is often blurred. It's the kind of story that sticks with you, becoming part of the fabric of personal lore shared with friends and family over the years. This story from the 1980s recounts a chilling moment experienced in Gulf Breeze. One day, while her husband was at work, a mother noticed something unusual outside the house in broad daylight. Initially assuming it was a delivery driver or neighborhood kids, she soon realized it was something far more alarming. Men dressed in full military gear, one visibly armed, were outside the house. Their faces were concealed, adding to the ominous presence. Panicked and unsure of what to do, she gathered her children and hid with them in the laundry room, a windowless space, for hours, praying for safety. Fortunately, the men never attempted to enter the house, and by the time her husband returned, they were gone. The incident left her shaken, and its explanation remains unclear. Whether they were law enforcement, military personnel, or something else entirely, the event added to the strange and unsettling atmosphere often associated with Gulf Breeze. This story, shared years later by the mother, highlights the area's peculiar history, known for its Civil War battles and, more recently, its reputation for unusual sightings and events. Watch the video on the screen for another paranormal war story.